Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly McFarland, and welcome to the Surviving Life Today podcast. The Surviving Life Today podcast is where we meet to think about how we're all surviving life today. I am your host, Kelly McFarland. I am a food anthropologist, a baker, and a small farmer. And this episode of the Surviving Life Today podcast is about surviving grief. And it's a difficult one for me to record, but I do think that where I'm at right now, I think recording this is probably the best approach to sharing the grief I'm feeling. Basically, right now in the United States, it's early May 2026, and there's a lot of fallout and problems with the current administration in power. There's a loss of democracy. There's the United States being run by basically an organized crime syndicate that is trying to destroy as much as they can before they get held accountable. So in all of that, there's a lot of chaos and disorder. And there is also life, the day-to-day living that we're all trying to do. And what I feel that we're seeing a lot in society right now is just kind of the fallout of all the stress and the really incredibly trying time that we're all living in. For me personally, for about a year now, have been estranged from my family, my older family that I grew up with, largely due to things that were outside of my control. I was contacted by the state over a year ago about a family member who was in need of help, who I could possibly help. And those of you who were involved in that know what I'm talking about. And those who were not, I am not the person at liberty to share. So I'm trying to make this as confidential but also honest about my own life as possible, because in order for me to be a healthy person, I have to live honestly and straightforward and share the things that I get through, the things that are survived in my life. So about a year ago, I was contacted by the state about a person in need of help. My family meaning me, my husband, and my children. So that family, and then there's my extended family, right? So my family, as in my husband, my children, and I, really turned our lives upside down to try to help. And in the end, on the extended family side of things, there was just too much secrecy and denial of accountability to lead to a good outcome. And so because of that, the chance to help the family member in need disappeared. And when that happened, when the chance to help that family member was really largely taken out of our hands, taken out of me and my husband and my children's hands, I became estranged from my extended family. And this was a choice. At the time, it was a choice made in hurt and a loss of trust. But since then, the choice has stood because of realizing many other things that were harmful and unhealthy about those relationships that would have to be repaired in order for us to get back to being a family. So all that said, because right now I'm in grief, but I'm also estranged from my family. So it puts me in a hard place. And I know that a lot of people who are estranged from their families are familiar with this it's almost like you walk around heartbroken every day, and from the people that you are estranged from, you are treated as though you are heartless. And the sad fact is, in order to keep your children and your home life healthy and running as it needs to, you have to make the hard decision of not being involved with those family members. So this is about grief, but I kind of had to put that little, I guess, disclaimer in the beginning because, well, I mean, there's more to it than even that, you know. So I am currently, and maybe forever, estranged from my family. And we've been through really a year of really trying times. I had a breast cancer scare last year. I lost a fantastic job working with a fantastic research team because of cuts to grant funding. We were working to help older adults living alone with cognitive impairment, help them find better support systems and services. The research still continues, but it's not in the United States anymore because of what has happened in the United States. I've also recently lost an adjunct position with a college that I was working for because the college closed because, as you know, in Texas, higher education, all education in Texas is being taken over by organized crime and dismantled. Hopefully we can hang on to it through the chaos, and I know eventually things will come back. But there's a lot of loss in this. There's a lot of loss for me for, you know, the future and what's going to happen. So now that's one of the main reasons why now in my recordings you're seeing I'm turning more towards farming and baking and those types of things, because the other things that I was doing are outside of my control, outside of the people I was working with's control, outside of the people who are even running things control, taken away because of basically a very angry few people who are running things, punishing us all for them being implicated in the Epstein files. I mean, that's the bottom line. We're all being punished by the one in charge. So that's, I guess, the end of the disclaimer before I begin talking about surviving grief. Grief is hard. Grief is a hard thing to get through. For me, being someone who is a survivor of childhood trauma, who largely is only learning how to be healthy in her 40s and really has a hard time not disassociating. Grief is a pool that I fall into. And I know from reading all these self-help books and all these things that grief should be felt when it happens so that you can be healthy about kind of the process of getting through. But for me, historically and now, grief is something that compounds. And it compounds until I can't handle it anymore, and then it floods. And so a few months ago, in the beginning of the year, I had my farm dog, my healer, Murphy, had been struggling with food and eating, and we'd gotten him to eat more, and this had been an ongoing struggle. And so one morning, my husband found him in our pond, and we're not too sure what happened. It could have been something medical. It could have been an animal attacked him, but I lost my farm dog, who was the best shadow in the world. He was like, when I think about losing Murphy, I think about when you go somewhere and you realize you forgot your favorite whatever. I forgot my favorite gloves. I forgot my favorite jacket. I forgot my favorite dog. And so he was my shadow. He was my companion on the farm. And I miss him the way you miss your favorite jacket, the way you miss something that was so dear to you that you never thought you would lose it, you know. Um, so the grief there, it has been hard, but it didn't. I was able to just kind of continue, and largely I have been raised to not talk about these things, and so by not talking about it, it makes it kind of not real, and so I was able to continue. Well, a few weeks ago, I was called by a family member, and I found out that my uncle passed away. And my uncle passing away is really kind of hard because, as I said at the beginning, I'm estranged from my family, and so I know a lot of there's a lot of sadness being felt through the family, and I'm not there to be a part of it, which me showing up would only distract from the actual reason everyone's getting together and probably put a wrench in things. So it's fine for me to grieve on my own. But it's also like you wonder if you're being, I don't know, like some way disrespectful, but then it's my uncle and whatever, right? My uncle Hector was a good man. I don't really know what happened. But when I think about him and I think about interacting with my uncle, the one thing I can say is that I never heard him say anything bad about anybody. From a family that is very chaotic and has a lot of opinions about a lot of things, it's really actually a big deal and says a lot about who he is as a person that I just never heard him. I never heard him say anything bad about anyone. And the day after my uncle passed away, I was just on the computer grading, and my husband told me that an old friend of his that was my social media buddy, a guy named Stephen Haas, also passed away. And I didn't know Stephen very well, but he was also a really good guy, like a really stand-up person who was there for his friends, who really had friends just everywhere because he was such a good guy. And interestingly, the last time we had interacted, he put up a picture of Dr. Gonzo saying goodbye from Fear and Loathing when he gets into the plane. And I said, "Is that Fear and Loathing?" That's one of my favorite movies because it's about what is America, which if you see my videos, you know that that's a topic I love to discuss. So Stephen passed away, and we recently went to a memorial, and it was it was a great get together. There will be another one in June, I believe. And it was nice to get together and remember Stephen. And I met some other people that, are in the community of, comic and print and making things and being creatives, and that was a really good experience for me. And then we continued through the week, and last Monday, my other farm dog, who, those of you who know my outside farm dog Ranger, just out of the blue, we had actually just brought him to an emergency vet a month earlier because he had a cut on his nose and we needed to help him. But out of the blue, Ranger was having really awful breathing problems, and I had to get him into a vet as soon as possible. And by the time I got him into a vet, the long story short is that we also lost Ranger. And grief is hard. And when we lost Ranger, that was when I wasn't able to compartmentalize, and I wasn't able to disassociate from the grief any longer. And I just completely got flooded with grief, right? And since then, I've been trying to get back to working order. And hanging in there and trying to know how to grieve in the right manner so that I am healthier for it, and so that life goes from surviving to thriving again, right? The whole point of this podcast is how can we survive things so that we can get back to thriving. And so I don't know if this recording is helpful in any way other than just commemorating my grief for all these losses. And I think about the world that we're living in and the direction the world is going right now, and how grief can help us. And I think that a big part of grief, and where some of us go wrong and where other of us go the right way, I guess, is just this kind of judgment around how you grieve, and the fact that you should turn that around on anybody who judges you, right? You should never be judged for how you're grieving, because each person feels things in different ways. I feel things from behind a 20-foot brick wall until it all finally gets to the top of the brick wall, and then it crashes in on me, which is probably not a good way to feel things, right? Some people are able to work through grief quickly. Some people get taken away by grief and are never the same. But there's not a right way or a wrong way to feel grief. Feeling grief is important because that's how you get better. You have to feel the hard side of things in order to feel the joy. And that was something, being someone who survived childhood trauma, that was something that I didn't really even understand until my oldest daughter was born, was that by not letting myself feel the hard things, I wasn't letting myself feel the joy either. And so you should let yourself feel grief, and you shouldn't judge others. I think during the beginning of the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of, there still is a lot of people who are like, COVID, whatever, they say it was fake or whatever, which is insane, because in the research I've done, I've seen, entire communities of elder people lost with COVID. But when I first started teaching, one of the best students I've ever had, she was in my first class, and it was right after we had opened back up after the pandemic. We had to wear masks in class, and she told me about her fiance who had passed away because of complications from getting sick with COVID. He had something else that he was fighting also, and catching COVID really, it was too much for him. And she talked to me about how she was a member of a group that met of young widows who had lost their loved ones in this very situation. And they talked about how even saying that their loved one had passed away from COVID was now a stigma, which is insane when I think about it, because if somebody treats you like you're a liar because you say your loved one passed away from COVID, then what is wrong with them? Right? Like, what is wrong with them? Like I said, you should never shame someone for grieving. But it seems to me that since the COVID pandemic, there's a lot of grief that we're just judge each other about. Maybe it was before then and I just wasn't as old as I am today. But one of the big things about surviving grief that I think is probably the most important part is that you shouldn't hide your grief. You shouldn't shame yourself, and you shouldn't hide from the fact that these things happen and that it does take a little bit to get better, and it does take a little bit to get over it. And it's okay to give yourself the grace to work through your grief. So I don't really even know if this recording is helpful. I think I needed to record this in order to continue to record, because I can't negate the fact that some really bad things have been happening lately in life, and I feel a little bit of a struggle. I feel like I get sad now out of nowhere a lot, and I don't know how to continue without honoring the people and the loved ones and the animals and the beautiful, lovely life that has been lost. So if you're in grief, I hope that whatever the situation is, it is allowing you to grieve, and it's allowing you to feel your feelings and get past it so that you can go on to survive and then thrive. If you have any comments or suggestions or ideas or just, feelings, you can leave them in the description below. I hope that you're all hanging in there. I know the world is a hard place right now, but I think that together we can make it. And so whatever you're doing in life, I hope that you survive and thrive in all that you do. Take care.